Admiral Taesung stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, his hands clasped behind his back. Through the massive viewport, he could see the scattered lights of Meridian Gate Station floating in the darkness of space. It was a peaceful sight. But peace would not last much longer. Captain Haewon approached from the tactical station, her face grim. She carried a data tablet that glowed with urgent red text. "Admiral, the message has been verified. It's authentic." Taesung took the tablet and read the words again, though he had already memorized them. The message came from the Dalthorian Empire, a civilization that ruled 40,000 star systems across the galaxy. Humanity had known about them for 20 years, ever since first contact. The Dalthorians had seemed amused by humans back then, like adults watching children play with toys. Now the amusement had ended. The message was simple and direct. Humanity had 72 hours to surrender all 200 colonies and submit to imperial rule. The alternative was total annihilation. The Empire's armada of 5,000 warships was already moving toward human space. Resistance would be crushed. Defiance would mean extinction. "They've been ruling the galaxy for 50,000 years, Haewon said quietly. "We've only been in space for 150? Taesung handed the tablet back. "How many ships can we gather? 300? Maybe 320 if we pull every vessel from patrol duty? But Admiral, their smallest battle group has more firepower than our entire fleet." At the communications station, young Officer Jin Woo turned in his chair. His hands were shaking slightly. "Sir, Earth's command is calling for an emergency council. All colonial governors, all fleet commanders, they want your recommendation." Taesung walked slowly across the bridge. Every officer watched him, waiting for orders, waiting for hope. He knew what Earth Command wanted to hear. They wanted a plan for evacuation. They wanted to know how many civilians could be saved before the Empire arrived. They wanted someone to tell them that survival was possible, but Taesung had spent 30 years in the fleet. He had studied every war in human history. He knew one truth that never changed. Bullies only understood one language. "Jinwoo, open a channel to Earth Command." "Channel open, sir?" The main screen flickered to life. Dozens of faces appeared, arranged in a grid. Governors, admirals, generals, politicians. Ambassador Yuna sat at the center, her expression carefully neutral. She had been humanity's voice to the Empire for 2 decades. She had tried diplomacy, tried negotiation. Now she waited to hear what the military would say. "Admiral Taesung," she began, "we have very little time. What are your recommendations?" Taesung could see the fear in their eyes. They wanted him to be realistic, to be practical. They wanted him to calculate the odds and make the smart choice. "I recommend absolute defiance," he said. The screen erupted in voices. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. One governor stood up, red-faced. "That's suicide. They'll destroy us." "They'll destroy us anyway," Taesung replied calmly. "If we surrender, humanity becomes slaves. Our children will be their servants. Our colonies will be their property. Is that survival worth having? Better slaves than dead." Someone shouted. Ambassador Yuna raised her hand for silence. "Admiral, I understand the appeal of defiance, but we must consider reality. The Empire has conquered 10,000 species. Not one has successfully resisted. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. What makes you think we can succeed where everyone else has failed?" Taesung looked directly at her through the screen. "Because we're human." A long silence followed. Haewon stepped closer, speaking for the council to hear. "The Admiral is right. Humanity has never been good at accepting defeat. We don't calculate odds before we fight. We fight first, then figure out how to win." "That's madness," a general said, but his voice was uncertain. Maybe Taesung agreed, but it's our madness. And it's kept us alive through ice ages, plagues, world wars, and everything else that tried to kill us. The Empire thinks we'll bow because everyone else did. "Let's show them they're wrong," Jinwoo spoke up, his voice no longer shaking. "Sir, if I may, my grandfather told me something before I joined the fleet. He said, humans are at their best when things are at their worst. Maybe this is our time. Ambassador Eunice studied Taesong's face for a long moment. Then something changed in her expression. The diplomat's mask fell away, and underneath was the same defiance that burned in the Admiral. If we're going to do this, we need to send a message they'll never forget. Something that shows them exactly who they're dealing with, agreed Taesoon said. Ginwoo, prepare a response for the Empire. Broadcast it on all frequencies. What should I send, sir? Taesoon smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a species that had climbed to the top of its food chain through sheer stubbornness. First, send them a recording. I want them to hear every human, on every ship, every station, every colony, laughing. Real laughter. The kind that says we're not afraid. Haewon grinned. They'll think we're insane. Good. Then they'll understand what they're up against. Taesoon paused, then continued. After the laughter, send them 3 words. Just 3. Come and take it. The council chamber erupted again, but this time it was different. This time there was energy, determination. The fear was still there, but something else had joined it. Something stubborn and ancient and very, very human. Over the next hour, the recording was made. From Earth to the furthest colony, humans laughed. They laughed at the Empire's threats. They laughed at the impossible odds. They laughed because fear was a choice, and they chose defiance instead. Ginwoo looked up from his console. Sir, the message is ready. Send it. Taesong commanded. Across space. Traveling at the speed of light, humanity's answer reached the Dalthorian Empire. First came the laughter, rolling and genuine and utterly fearless. Then came the words that would echo through history. Come and take it. The war had begun. High Commander Thex watched the human transmission for the 3rd time. Around him, the bridge crew of the Eternal Dominion remained silent. They had all heard it now. The laughter. The 3 defiant words. Thex was a veteran of 200 campaigns across 50 star systems. He had seen species beg for mercy. He had watched civilizations offer their entire wealth for peace. He had witnessed proud warrior races kneel before the Empire's might. But he had never, in all his years of service, heard anyone laugh at an Imperial ultimatum? Analysis, he commanded. His intelligence officer stepped forward, her scales shimmering under the bridge lights. Commander, we've studied their response extensively. It appears to be genuine. No hidden meanings, no coded messages. They are simply ... refusing. That's impossible. They've seen our fleet strength. They know their odds. Yes, Commander, they know. They don't seem to care. Thex pulled up humanity's file on his display. The species was young, barely a century and a half in space. Their technology was primitive by Imperial standards. Kinetic weapons instead of plasma cannons. Chemical rockets instead of quantum drives. Their shields couldn't withstand even a single shot from an Imperial dreadnought. Show me their military capabilities, he ordered. The display filled with data. 300 ships. The largest was barely half the size of an Imperial cruiser. Their weapons were crude, but functional. Their armor was thick, but outdated. On paper, the entire human fleet couldn't scratch the paint on the Eternal Dominion. They have no chance, his tactical officer said. This will be over in a day, but something nagged at Thex. He had read the reports from First Contact 20 years ago. The humans had been curious, eager to learn. They had asked 10,000 questions about everything. The Imperial delegation had found them amusing, like primitive children discovering fire. Pull up the First Contact records, Dex said. I want to review everything. As he read through the old files, a pattern emerged. The humans asked questions. Yes, but they weren't just curious. They were studying. Every answer they received, they analyzed and dissected. They wanted to know how Imperial shields worked, how the quantum drives functioned, how the Empire maintained control over so many systems. At the time, the Imperial delegates had answered freely. Why not? The humans were so far behind that the information was useless to them. Giving a caveman the blueprints for a starship wouldn't help him build one, but humans had a reputation in the galaxy. even if the Empire hadn't paid attention to it. They adapted. They learned. They took old ideas and made them new. Dex switched to recent intelligence reports. Over the past 20 years, human technology had advanced at an alarming rate. They had gone from basic fusion drives to proto-quantum engines. Their shields, while still weak, were improving exponentially. Their weapons were becoming more sophisticated. "This species learns too fast," he muttered. On the planet below the Eternal Dominion, human colonists were receiving evacuation orders from Earth. Colonial Governor Park had expected panic, chaos, fear. Instead, the colonists were angry. "We built this colony with our own hands," one farmer told him. "We're not leaving because some empire decided they want it." "You'll die if you stay," Park warned. "Then we'll die," the farmer said simply. "But we'll die free." That sentiment echoed across all 200 colonies. Evacuation shuttles sat empty. Families barricaded themselves in their homes. Workers fortified their cities. They had no weapons, no training, no chance. But they refused to run. Park reported this to Earth's command, expecting orders to force evacuations. Instead, Admiral Tae-sung sent a different message. "If they want to stay, let them stay. Give them whatever weapons we can spare. Show them how to fight." Meanwhile, in a classified facility beneath Earth's surface, Engineer Kite was working on something the Empire didn't know about. For 20 years, humanity had been preparing. Not preparing to surrender, but preparing to survive. "Show the Admiral," he told his assistant. 3 days later, Tae-sun stood in the underground laboratory, looking at what humanity had built in secret. Weapons specifically designed to exploit Imperial weaknesses. EMP devices that could overload their shields. Kinetic penetrators that moved too fast for their targeting systems. Viral programs that could infect their computer networks. "We studied everything they told us at first contact," Kite explained. "Then we figured out how to break it." Dr. Misun joined them, carrying her own research. She was a xenobiology specialist who had spent 2 decades studying every species in the Empire. Her findings were disturbing, but useful. "The Empire has conquered 10,000 species," she said. "I've analyzed every single defeat. The pattern is always the same. The Empire shows overwhelming force. The species calculates the odds. They surrender. It's logical, practical, smart, but," Tae-sung prompted. "But humans aren't logical when threatened. We're psychological anomalies. Every other species in the galaxy has a survival instinct that says, live to fight another day. We have an instinct that says, fight until there's nothing left to fight with." She pulled up brain scans, comparing humans to other species. When faced with impossible odds, other species' brains trigger retreat responses. Our brains trigger aggression responses. We literally become more dangerous when cornered. "So they've never fought anyone like us," Tae-sun said. "Never in 50,000 years of conquest. They've never encountered a species that thrives under pressure." Fighter pilot Nari was listening from the doorway. She was young, only 25, but she had the highest kill count in simulations. "Admiral, permission to speak?" "Granted. My squadron has been running scenarios. We can't match their ships in a straight fight. But if we use swarm tactics, hit-and-run attacks, target their weak points, we can hurt them. Maybe not win, but definitely hurt them." Tae-sung nodded. "That's all we need to do. Make it hurt. Make it expensive. Make them regret coming here." Back on the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Dex received word that the Imperial fleet was ready to jump into human space. 5,000 ships, each one a technological masterpiece. The largest armada assembled in 3 centuries. "Set course for Proxima Gate," he ordered. "We'll start there and work our way to Earth. Show them what happens when you defy the Empire." His officers cheered. This would be a quick campaign, an easy victory. Just another primitive species added to the uncertain Empire's endless collection of conquered worlds. But Dex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The laughter still echoed in his mind. No one laughed at an ultimatum. No one defied when defeat was certain, unless they knew something the Empire didn't. The fleet began its jump. Reality twisted and bent as 5,000 warships folded space. They emerged at Proxima Gate, expecting to see humans fleeing in panic. Instead, they found the human fleet waiting for them. 300 ships arranged in a defensive formation. Every single one had its weapons armed and shields raised. Admiral Taesung's voice broadcast across all frequencies, reaching both human and Imperial ships. "They say you've conquered 10,000 species," he said. "Impressive, but you've never fought humans. Today, you learn why that matters. Today you learn that some species don't surrender. Some species fight. And some species make you pay for every inch of ground you take." The human fleet didn't retreat, didn't negotiate, didn't hesitate. They attacked. The Battle of Proxima Gate began with silence. For 3 long seconds, neither fleet moved. The Imperial Armada hung in space like a wall of metal and power, 5,000 ships gleaming in the starlight. The human fleet looked tiny in comparison. 300 vessels spread thin across the defensive line. High Commander Thex expected the humans to break formation. Retreat was the logical choice. Instead, Admiral Taesun gave an order that would be remembered for generations. All ships, scatter formation. Execute Protocol Chaos. The human fleet exploded into motion. Ships broke in every direction. No to following the same vector. It looked like panic, like a complete loss of discipline. The Imperial officers laughed at their screens. This was even easier than expected. Then the first human missiles struck. They came from 8 different angles. Launched during the scatter, the Imperial point defense systems engaged, destroying 90% of them. But 10% got through, and those 10% hit exactly where they were aimed. Shield generators. Sensor arrays. Weapon hardpoints. Captain Haywan watched her tactical display as the data flooded in. Targets marked. All ships, focus fire on damaged sections. The Imperial fleet's strength was its shields. They were nearly impenetrable, capable of absorbing incredible punishment. But Dr. Massan's research had found the weakness. The shields had to cycle, had to refresh, had to redistribute power. And in those microseconds of cycling, they were vulnerable. Pilot Nari led her squadron of fighters through the chaos. Her voice was calm over the comm channel. "Gold Squadron, with me. We're going for the cruiser's portside engines." "That's suicide, Nari," one of her pilots said. "Only if we stay. Hit and run, just like we practiced." 12 fighters dove toward an Imperial cruiser that was 3 times larger than the biggest human ship. The cruiser's automated defenses opened fire, filling space with energy beams. 2 human fighters exploded instantly. But the others kept coming, weaving between shots. Moving in patterns that no computer could predict because they weren't following any patterns at all. They were improvising, Naris. Fighters screamed past the cruiser's hull so close that she could see the Imperial crew through the viewports. She released her payload, 6 armor-piercing rockets, then yanked her stick hard left. The fighter spun away as explosions bloomed across the cruiser's engine section. Code 3 through 7, target that breach. Pour everything into it. The surviving fighters followed her order. Rockets, missiles, kinetic rounds, all hammering into the damaged section. The cruiser's shields tried to compensate, but they were designed to handle large, predictable attacks, not swarms of small, fast, unpredictable ones. The cruiser's engine exploded. The ship went dark and began to drift. "First kill!" Someone shouted over the comm. "That's one for humanity." But there were 4,999 more ships to go. On the Indomitable. Admiral Taesun watched the battle unfold. His strategy was simple. Don't fight fair. Don't engage in honorable combat. Use every dirty trick humans had learned in 10,000 years of warfare. Tactical, release the debris field. Haywan pressed a button. 30 human ships simultaneously dumped their cargo holds. Thousands of tons of metal scraps, asteroids, broken ship parts, all scattered across the battlefield. The Imperial sensors went haywire, trying to track too many objects at once. Now Taesun said quietly, "All ships, Hide in the debris. Ghost Protocol. The human fleet shut down everything non-essential. Weapons offline. Engines minimal. They became just more debris floating in space. The Imperial targeting systems lost lock. High Commander Thex watched in growing frustration. Where did they go? Sensors can't differentiate between debris and ships, Commander. The field is too cluttered, and clear it. Send in fighters to sweep the area. The Imperial fighters launched by the hundreds. They flew through the debris field, searching for targets. They found them. Human ships powered up without warning, weapons hot. At point-blank range, they opened fire. Imperial fighters exploded by the dozens. The survivors tried to retreat, but the human ships were already powering down again, disappearing into the debris. Guerrilla warfare. Hit and run. Ambush tactics. None of it was honorable. All of it was effective. Commander Han led the ground forces aboard the disabled Imperial cruiser. His troops had boarded through the breach Nara's squadron created. The Imperial crew fought back, but they were trained for ship-to-ship combat. It's not boarding actions. Humans had been fighting each other in close quarters for thousands of years. They knew every trick. Clear left. Heen shouted, throwing a flashbang around a corner. The Imperial soldiers were blinded, and human troops rushed forward. Stun weapons, riot shields, close combat techniques. Within 20 minutes, they had secured the engineering section. Get everything, Han ordered his tech team. Computer codes, shield specifications, weapons data. Strip this ship clean. Back on Earth, Communications Coordinator Sora was broadcasting the battle to every human world. People watched in their homes, in public squares, on ships light years away. They saw their fleet fighting against impossible odds. They saw their ships exploding, but they also saw Imperial ships burning. This is Earth Central, Sora announced, her voice steady despite the chaos. The Battle of Proxima Gate continues. Our casualties are heavy. But the Empire is bleeding. They thought we would break. They were wrong. The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of constant combat, of ships exploding, of lives ending. The human fleet lost 80 ships, nearly a third of their strength, but the Imperial fleet lost 400. High Commander. Thex stared at his casualty reports in disbelief. This is impossible. No species has ever inflicted such losses on the Empire. Commander, the humans are using tactics we've never encountered. They don't fight to win. They fight to inflict maximum damage before they die. That's insane. Yes, Commander. That appears to be their strategy. Dex pulled up footage from the battle. He watched human ships ram Imperial vessels when their weapons ran dry. He saw pilots eject at the last second, then manually detonate their ship's reactor to take out nearby enemies. He witnessed tactics that made no logical sense, that violated every principle of warfare the Empire knew. But they worked. As the battle finally ended, both fleets pulled back. The humans retreated to regroup. The Imperial fleet held position, trying to understand what had happened. Admiral Tassone addressed his surviving ships. His uniform was torn, his face covered in soot from a fire on the bridge. But his eyes were bright. Today we showed the Empire something they've forgotten. We showed them that conquest has a price. We lost friends, family, comrades. We'll mourn them. But first, we'll honor them by continuing to fight. On the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Thex made his own assessment. He had one, technically. His fleet was still operational. The humans had retreated. But at what cost? 400 ships, thousands of crew, resources, time, reputation, all lost in a single battle against species that wasn't supposed to be able to fight back. He opened a secure channel to the Imperial capital. When the Emperor's advisor appeared on screen, Dex spoke carefully. We have engaged the humans. We achieved tactical victory. Excellent. When will you proceed to Earth? Thex hesitated. I recommend we wait for reinforcements. Reinforcements? You have 5,000 ships against 300 primitives. Had 5,000, my lord? Now I have 4,600. The humans fight like nothing we've ever encountered. They don't care about winning. They only care about making us pay. The advisor's expression changed. 400 ships? In one battle? Yes, my lord. And if they fought this hard to defend an outer colony, imagine what they'll do when we reach Earth. The transmission ended. Dex looked out at the stars at the debris field where the battle had taken place. Somewhere in that wreckage were the bodies of Imperial soldiers who had thought this would be an easy campaign. He was beginning to understand why the humans had laughed at his ultimatum. They knew something the Empire was only now learning. Victory wasn't about winning. It was about making the cost of winning too high to bear, and humans were very, very good at making things expensive. 3 months after the Battle of Proxima Gate, the war had spread across 50 star systems. Every day brought new reports of combat, of victories and defeats, of lives lost on both sides. But the pattern remained the same. The Empire advanced. The humans made them bleed for every inch. Emperor Varric sat in his throne room, reading casualty reports that grew longer each week. 1,200 ships destroyed. 30,000 crew killed. Resources drained from across the Empire to feed a war against a species that was supposed to be extinct by now. How? He demanded. How are primitives doing this? His chief analyst, a scholar who had studied warfare for 3 centuries, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have completed our study of human behavior. The findings are... disturbing. Explain. The analyst activated a holographic display. It showed battle footage from dozens of engagements. Every species we have conquered follows predictable patterns. When faced with superior force, they calculate odds. When odds become unfavorable, they negotiate. When negotiation fails, they surrender. This is logical behavior shared by all intelligent species, except humans. Except humans, the analyst agreed. They don't calculate odds the way we do. When faced with impossible situations, their brains don't trigger retreat responses. They trigger attack responses. The worse their situation becomes, the more fiercely they fight. Emperor Varric watched footage of a human ship ramming an Imperial cruiser. The human vessel was already crippled, weapons destroyed, life support failing. The logical action was to surrender. Instead, the human captain had aimed his dying ship at the enemy and accelerated. Both ships were destroyed. That's just one example, the analyst said. We have thousands. Humans don't fight to survive. They fight to make you regret attacking them. Another disturbing pattern had emerged. Humans learned impossibly fast. Technology the Empire had taken centuries to develop. Humans reverse-engineered in weeks. Tactics that had worked in the first battles stopped working in later ones. The humans adapted, evolved, improved. On the colony world of New Sol, Resistance leader Daejung was proving this point. The Empire had occupied his world 2 months ago. They expected the population to submit, to accept their new rulers, to return to normal life under Imperial control. Instead, Daejung had organized a guerrilla war that was bleeding the occupation forces dry. Factories sabotaged. Supply lines ambushed. Imperial soldiers who strayed too far from base simply disappeared. The Empire had committed 10,000 troops to the occupation. In 2 months, 3,000 were dead or wounded. They're everywhere, an Imperial commander complained. We secure a district, and the next day it's hostile again. We capture 1 resistance cell, and 2 more appear. It's like fighting ghosts. Daejung led his fighters through underground tunnels beneath the city. They had weapons captured from Imperial soldiers, bombs made from mining equipment, communications gear stolen from supply depots. They were farmers, teachers, merchants, but the Empire had turned them into warriors. Next target, Daejun told his team. The main power station. If we take it down, their shields go offline for 30 seconds. Long enough for our fighters in orbit to strike. That station is heavily guarded, one of his fighters warned. Everything worth doing is dangerous, Daejung replied. That's what makes it worth doing. Meanwhile, Engineer Kite was unveiling humanity's secret weapon. Admiral Tae-sung stood in the laboratory, looking at devices that didn't look like much. Small, simple, almost crude compared to Imperial technology. EMP generators, Kite explained, specifically designed to overload Imperial shield harmonics. They studied the shields we captured from the Battle of Proxima Gate, found the resonance frequency. These will create a pulse that makes their shields collapse for 3 to 4 seconds. That's not much time, Captain Hayone said. It's enough, Taesoon replied. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to hurt them. Dr. Misun had made her own discoveries. She had been studying the Empire's weaknesses, not in their technology, but in their psychology. They've been dominant for 50,000 years, she told the command staff. Think about what that means. 50,000 years without a real challenge, without fear, without having to adapt or evolve. She pulled up historical data. Every species they conquered became part of the Empire. Their warriors, their scientists, their technology. The Empire absorbed them, but what they absorbed was always inferior. They never faced anyone who could push them to improve, so they've grown soft. Taesoon said, not soft exactly, rigid, predictable. They fight the way they've always fought because it's always worked. They use the same tactics, the same strategies, the same approach. They're like a champion boxer who's never been hit. Technically perfect, but psychologically unprepared for a real fight. This analysis proved accurate at the Battle of Orion's Gate. The Imperial fleet approached using standard doctrine. Form a wall formation. Advance slowly. Overwhelm with firepower. They'd used this tactic for thousands of years against thousands of species. Admiral Taesoon was ready for it. Deploy the EMP mines, he ordered. The human fleet had seeded the approach vector with thousands of tiny devices. As the Imperial wall advanced, the mines activated. Electromagnetic pulses rippled across the Imperial shields. For 4 seconds, every ship in the wall was vulnerable. 4 seconds was enough. Human ships, hidden behind a nearby moon, emerged and opened fire, not with standard weapons, but with the new kinetic penetrators Kite had designed. Solid metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds. Moving too fast for Imperial point defense to track, 40 Imperial ships exploded in the first volley. The wall formation, which relied on overlapping shields, collapsed. Chaos spread through the Imperial fleet as they tried to respond to a tactic they had never seen before. All ships, close to knife-fighting range, Taesoon commanded, don't give them room to form up. The human fleet charged into the Imperial formation, ships weaving between the larger enemy vessels. At close range, the Imperial advantages disappeared. Their bigger guns couldn't track small, fast targets. Their shields were optimized for long-range bombardment, not close-quarters combat. The battle was vicious and short. The humans lost 50 ships. The Empire lost 200. High Commander Thex watched the battle from his flagship. His analysts were shouting conflicting reports. His tactical officers couldn't predict what the humans would do next. His crew, once confident and proud, now looked nervous. They're monsters, one officer whispered. They fight like they're already dead. No, Thex said quietly. They fight like they have nothing to lose. There's a difference. Ambassador Yuna, meanwhile, was conducting her own war. While the fleets battled in space, she was making secret contacts with moderate factions within the Empire. Not every species enjoyed Imperial rule. Not every world was happy being conquered. The humans are proving something, she told a representative from a subject species. They're proving the Empire can be fought, can be hurt, can be stopped. But you're still losing, the representative said. Slowly perhaps, but inevitably. Maybe, Yuna admitted. But we're making the cost higher than the Empire expected. And every day we survive, others are watching. Others are learning. How long before someone else decides to resist? The seed of doubt was planted. Back on Earth, Emperor Varix's council presented him with updated casualty projections. If the war continued at the current rate, the Empire would need 3 more years and 10,000 additional ships to conquer human space. 3 years? Varix repeated. This was supposed to be finished in 3 months. Your Majesty, the humans fight without regard for their own survival. Every colony must be taken by force. Every planet will resist. Every system will cost us ships and lives. They have no intention of surrendering. Varric stood and paced. Then we used the Worldbreaker. Silence fell across the council chamber. The Worldbreaker was the Empire's ultimate weapon. A planet killer. A device so powerful it could crack a world in half. It had been used only twice in Imperial history, both times as a demonstration of power. If we destroy Earth, Varric said, the humans will have nothing left to fight for. They'll surrender or die. Either way, the war ends. His military advisor bowed. I will have the Worldbreaker moved to the solar system, Your Majesty. As the council dispersed, Varric looked at the star map showing human territory. Such a small species, such a tiny part of the galaxy. Why were they causing so much trouble? The answer came to him slowly. They were causing trouble because they refused to accept their place. Every other species had looked at the Empire's power and submitted. Humans looked at it and laughed. Perhaps Varric thought that was the most dangerous thing about them. The Worldbreaker entered the solar system like a traveling moon. It was massive, larger than any human city, bristling with weapons and shielded by technology that made it virtually indestructible. Behind it came the remnants of the Imperial fleet, 4,000 ships arranged in a protective formation. On Earth, billions of people looked up at the night sky and knew death was coming. Admiral Taesong stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at his tactical display. The human fleet had been reduced to 150 ships. Half were damaged. All were low on ammunition. Against 4,000 Imperial vessels and a planet-killer weapon, they had no chance whatsoever. Sir, Captain Haywan said quietly, evacuation shuttles are ready. We can save some of the civilian population. How many? Maybe 10 million. Out of 12 billion. Taesung shook his head. Not good enough. We're not running. We're not abandoning Earth, Admiral. This isn't about pride. This is about survival. If Earth falls, humanity dies. If Earth falls without a fight, humanity dies anyway. Just slower. Taesong turned to face his crew. Our job has never been to win. Our job is to make them pay. To make them remember. To show the galaxy that some species don't bow. Ginwu spoke from the communications station. Sir, we're receiving messages from across the solar system. Civilian ships, cargo vessels, mining craft. They're all asking permission to join the fleet. The civilian ships. Haywan looked shocked. They have no weapons, no armor. They'll be slaughtered. They know that, Jinwu said. They're volunteering anyway. Taesong felt something catch in his throat. Ordinary people, merchants and miners and transport pilots, willing to die to defend their home. Grant them permission. Every ship counts. By the time the human fleet formed its defensive sphere around Earth, it had grown to 300 vessels. Half were military. Half were civilians with weapons welded to their hulls and courage keeping them in formation. Engineer Chite contacted Taesun from the surface. Admiral, I have a plan. It's crazy, but it's all we have left. I'm listening. The Worldbreaker's main weapon needs 45 seconds to charge. During that time, it draws power from the entire fleet. If we could create a feedback loop, overload every ship's reactor at the exact same moment, the energy cascade might be enough to destabilize the weapon. Might be? I've never seen a planet killer before. I'm working with theory and guesswork. But if it works, the weapon will tear itself apart. And if it doesn't work, then we all die 45 seconds faster than planned. Taesun smiled grimly. Better than doing nothing. Prepare the Cascade program. Send it to every ship. Pilot Nari was preparing her squadron for their final mission. Only 30 fighters remained from the hundreds that had started the war. Listen up, she told her pilots. We can't destroy the Worldbreaker, but we can buy time. Our job is to keep the escorts busy while the fleet sets up the Cascade. That's a suicide mission, Nari, someone said. Every mission from now on is a suicide mission. We're all dead anyway. Question is, what do we do with the time we have left? No one argued. They all knew the truth. Earth was lost. The only choice was how they would face the end. on the Eternal Dominion. High Commander Thex watched the human fleet form its defensive sphere. He had expected them to scatter, to try to save what they could. Instead, they were making a final stand. Fools, his tactical officer said. They're going to die for nothing. But Thex wasn't so sure anymore. Over the past 3 months, he had learned to respect humans, even as he fought them. They didn't do anything for nothing. If they were standing their ground, they had a reason. Scan that formation carefully, he ordered. I want to know what they're planning. Emperor Varix appeared on the main screen. High Commander, you are authorized to deploy the Worldbreaker. End this war. Now. Your Majesty, the humans are. I don't care what the humans are doing. Fire the weapon. The Worldbreaker began to charge. Energy built up in its core, power drawn from every ship in the Imperial fleet. The weapon glowed brighter and brighter as it prepared to crack Earth like an egg. 40-5 seconds. That was all humanity had left. All ships, Taysun commanded, execute cascade on my mark. It's been an honor serving with you all. Across the human fleet, crews made their peace. Some prayed. Some wrote final messages to loved ones. Some simply stared at Earth, memorizing the blue and green world they would never see again. Nari's squadron launched. They flew straight at the Imperial escorts, not trying to survive, just trying to draw fire. Imperial point defense lit up space with energy beams. Fighters exploded one after another, but they kept coming. The Worldbreaker's charge reached 90%. 30 seconds remaining. Captain Haywon stood beside Taysun, her hand on his shoulder. Whatever happens, Admiral, we fought well, fought like humans, he replied. That's all that matters. 20 seconds. On Earth, people gathered in the streets. If they were going to die, they would die together, watching the sky, refusing to hide. 10 seconds, the Worldbreaker reached full charge. The weapon aligned on Earth. In 5 seconds, it would fire. Then Emperor Varix's voice echoed across all frequencies. Halt. I order an immediate ceasefire. High Commander Thex stared at his screen. Your Majesty? I said halt. Power down the Worldbreaker. Pull the fleet back. The Imperial bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Vex demanded an explanation. Sire, we have victory in our grasp. No, Varix said quietly. We have nothing. Proceed with the attack, and we destroy Earth. But the cost. High Commander, I have reviewed every report, every analysis, every projection. To completely destroy humanity will take us 10 years. 10 years of constant warfare. 10 years of mounting casualties. 10 years of other species watching and wondering if they too could resist. He paused, looking directly at the camera. But worse than that, I have come to understand something about humans. They don't fight to win. They fight to make victory meaningless. If we destroy Earth, the surviving colonies will never surrender. They'll wage guerrilla war forever. Every Imperial world will need permanent garrisons. Every supply line will be vulnerable. Every victory will cost us more than it's worth. The Empire had conquered 10,000 species, but they had never tried to conquer one that simply refused to stop fighting. A species that saw death as acceptable, but submission as unthinkable. What are your orders, Your Majesty? Open a channel to the human admiral. Moments later, Taesong's face appeared on the screen. His uniform was torn, his face exhausted. But his eyes were still defiant. Admiral Taysun, Emperor Varix began, I am prepared to offer terms. We don't negotiate with, not surrender, Varix interrupted. A treaty. Humanity remains independent within its current territory. The Empire withdraws all forces. You agree to cease expansion for 100 years and share defensive technology. Taesong's expression didn't change. And if we refuse, then we destroy Earth, and this war continues for a decade. Millions die on both sides. Perhaps billions. And in the end, humanity might still lose. But the cost to the Empire will be catastrophic. We will spend resources we can't spare, lose ships we can't replace, and show every conquered species that resistance is possible. For a long moment, Taysun said nothing. Then he turned to his crew. Opinions? It's not victory, Hay once said. But it's survival. We fought to defend ourselves, Ginwu added. This achieves that. Nara's voice came over the come from her fighter. Admiral, my grandfather once told me that winning isn't always about defeating your enemy. Sometimes it's about making them decide you're not worth fighting. Taesong looked back at the Emperor. If we accept, the Empire leaves immediately. No occupation, no observers, no strings attached. Agreed. You put it in writing. A formal treaty, recognized by the entire Empire? It will be done. Taesong took a deep breath. Then we accept. The Worldbreaker powered down. The Imperial fleet began its withdrawal. On Earth. People watched in stunned silence as the ships that had come to destroy them turned and left. In the streets, someone started laughing. Then someone else. Within minutes, the entire planet was laughing, crying, celebrating. They had survived. Against all odds, against all logic, humanity had survived. 1 year later, Admiral Taezung stood on the observation deck of a new space station orbiting Earth. Human ships patrolled the borders freely. Construction had begun on new vessels, incorporating technologies shared in the treaty. Ambassador Yuna joined him. Reports are coming in from across the Empire. 3 subject species have petitioned for independence. The Empire granted it without a fight. More than that. We showed them that some things are worth dying for. Freedom, dignity, the right to determine your own fate. She smiled. The Empire ruled through fear. We broke that fear with laughter. Taesun nodded, remembering that first transmission. The laughter that had started everything. We didn't win through military strength. We won because we were willing to lose everything except our freedom. Do you think they'll come back? Maybe in a century or two, but by then, we'll be stronger. And they'll remember what happened the last time they threatened us. He looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy beyond human space. Somewhere out there, the Empire was learning a lesson 50,000 years overdue. Some species couldn't be conquered. Some spirits couldn't be broken. And some laughter echoed forever.